It sounded like you said licking all the buttons.
Man, I hope that made it in because now we're live with another episode for the Fans Podcast.
Oh, sweet!
I have no idea how much it caught, but that'll be interesting to catch up on.
That would have been funny if that's the case.
Oh boy. Anyways, we're back. Week 15. I There were some head scratches for me in week 15.
There were a lot of things going on that I think sets us up as we get closer and closer to the playoffs. I don't know. If you ask me, there's nothing really exciting going on in the NFC right now. It seems almost all but certain that we'll be seeing the 49ers come out of the NFC. But in the AFC, you got a couple of dogs in there. Got a couple of teams
Mm-hmm.
that are looking pretty good, could make a run for it. You know, on the higher level, you got like the Ravens and the Dolphins. You could maybe have some teams sneak in there like the Chiefs or yeah,
The
I guess the Chiefs.
Bills.
The Bills, the Bengals, the Jaguars. You got the Texans and the Broncos who could still make noise. It's shaping up to be interesting on that side. But as we go here into the holiday weekend with Christmas coming up, some really good games on Christmas, I think it's really going to give us a very, very good idea of how things will look going forward into the playoffs. But see a couple of playoff previews, couple of potentially even a Super Bowl matchup that we might see on Christmas night is what some people are speculating. I think
Mm-hmm.
it's going to be good.
Yeah, we got a good week in store for us. So let's kick off with a little bit of news other than talking about how teams are doing. We got Steelers safety Damontae Kazee has been banned for the remainder of the season after his kind of brutal hit on Michael Pittman Jr. and for repeatedly ignoring safety violations.
Did you see the clip of
Yes,
that
I
hit
did.
though?
Yes, I
That
did.
looked like it hurt.
Yeah,
That was
that
bad.
was that was kind of a bad hit. I mean, did you see Keaton Mitchell like pop his
Oh
something in his
yeah, his
leg?
knee. Yeah,
Woo!
I was watching that. I was watching that game live. I think you were too.
I was very upset because now Trevor's hurt
Yeah.
again.
Oh
And
man.
everyone's like, we need to get rid of Trevor. I'm like, he went down on this play, which is the play that everyone believes he got a concussion on, and then he started doing bad. I'm like, he has a messed up ankle, he has a messed up knee, and now he has a concussion. He is very hurt, and our offensive line is like bottom 10 in pass blocking and run blocking.
Uh,
Yeah. It Although I will say, I'm surprised it wasn't a bigger blowout on the Ravens part, which made me question the Ravens a little bit. I'm like, oh, are the Ravens not that strong of a team?
we will get an idea in their matchup on Christmas.
That we
That's how I
will.
see it. That's how I see it. However, before we get to that, let's talk about some quarterback changes that are coming up. Big ones. We've got Steelers. They're getting rid of Trubisky and they're going to start Mason Rudolph because they need some sort of change if they want to stay in the playoff hunt as they go up against their division rival Cincinnati Bengals this week. And the Atlanta Falcons are also making another change. They're going back to Taylor Heineke over Desmond Ritter, especially after that loss to
Mm.
the Panthers. Oh,
Can we also
oh.
talk about that the AFC North only has one starter quarterback, like one QB1 starting this week?
Yep. As of right now, you have three AFC North teams that are playoff potential right now. They are technically in a playoff seeding as of right now if the playoffs were to start today. And the fact that Joe Flacco and Jake Browning are two of the starting QBs,
hmm
that's
Well, I mean, even look at the AFC South. The AFC South is projected that not a single starting quarterback is going to be playing this week.
really
Lawrence is out with a concussion. Richardson went down earlier in the season. CJ Stroud is still on concussion and may not play and has been most likely
right.
ruled out. And Will Levis hasn't been practicing, and they're gonna put Ryan Tannehill back in.
Goodness, I must have missed that. I know, that just leads us into our injury report here. Shane, you mentioned a couple of them here, including Will Levis with his ankle. You got Ronnie Stanley in concussion. You got Tevin Jenkins in concussion. Jamar Chase has a separated AC joint in his shoulder. Zach Martin his quadriceps. Jaden Reed toe. Michael Pittman's concussion. Zach Moss with an arm injury. Zay Jones with a hamstring. Zach Wilson in concussion protocol. Minka Fitzpatrick with knee. Cam Hayward in concussion protocol. They're all designated as questionable. And on top of that, we did mention it earlier, Keaton Mitchell, gruesome torn ACL injury, out for the remainder of the season.
And with that one, I don't think that was like anyone trying to hurt him. I think what it was is like
No.
it was a shoestring tackle where like someone caught the back of his foot and he just couldn't land on his foot properly. Having
Yep.
dislocated my own kneecap, one wrong step and your knee just pops out and it is horrible.
I know I'm gonna make a reference here to something that I know you're not over familiar with, Shane, but it reminded me a lot of Derrick Rose in the NBA when
I
he
actually know
suffered his.
about that one. Haha.
Here we go. Yes, but D Rose, when he had his injury and he came up, and then obviously when he came down and he tore his ACL, he just landed wrong. That's
Mhm.
all it was, and that's the exact same thing that happened. Now, granted, it was a lot more graphic and a lot more noticeable with Keaton Mitchell. Like we're talking like the only leg injury or knee injury that I've seen that was more ugly than that one was Nick Chubb's this season.
And
It's still a lot.
yeah, and I will say, like, even the commentators are like, we're not going to replay that because that was pretty graphic for everybody.
Yeah.
So, prayers up for
You know,
Keaton Mitchell. Hope he recovers soon and can go back to having a stellar career.
I'll tell you this though. You ever heard about? I know we're kind of venturing down the rabbit hole here with this, but do you know who Kevin Ware is? Probably not.
I do not know who Kevin Ware is.
Okay, so Kevin Ware, I remember. I think he played for Louisville. I think that's who he played for. On their basketball team.
Okay?
Um, back in 2013, and I want to say it was during March Madness, during a live broadcast game. He went down with an injury, and the injury was I've never seen anything like it in the history of sports. The bone came out of his skin.
I think I
His,
remember that.
I think it was his tibia. Like his tibia came out of his skin,
Ugh.
and it was beyond. It was beyond unreal. And I just
Injuries are
remember,
horrible.
yeah. So that you want to talk about gruesome injuries? That one I think takes the cake, if you ask me.
Yeah. I mean, there's been a couple. Have you seen some skateboarders?
Yeah, we need to go into those
Woo!
ones.
Whoo! Seen some of those. I'm just like, oh, don't want to look at that anymore. Anyways,
Yeah, ugh. And you throw any road rash in there, and oh yeah, I'm out.
oh yeah, my brother got like massive road rash when he was doing longboarding one time, and it was all over his body.
Yeah, that's what I had one time when I broke my hand longboarding. So I mean, I've been there. I understand.
Jeez.
But anyway,
Anyways,
anyway,
let's
we
get
got
into our pits for the week.
for sure. Well, we got to go do through our wells and woes first,
Oh
right?
yeah.
I feel like this is the second time this season you've forgotten about that.
I mean, to be fair, I was literally looking at that and I just read the two teams' names. I'm like, let's go into our pits because I just read two teams' names.
Oh, got it, got it. Okay, cool. Do you mind if I start with mine tonight?
Go for it. Let's change it up. Get started.
Good deal. Okay, so with ours, with the first two picks that I have on my end, the first one I need to talk about is the Dallas Cowboys and the Buffalo Bills. So, I mean, I honestly, this wasn't what I was expecting. I
I don't
wasn't
think
expecting it to
anyone
be a
expected
blockbuster.
this.
Don't Stephen A. Smith.
No one expected James Cook to go off the way that he did on this Cowboys defense.
There were some rosters that honestly probably didn't do as well as James Cook did against this defense. But here's the thing, and we'll talk about it more later once we get into our picks this week. But the Bills, I mean, they dominated behind that running game against the Cowboys. But another thing too, um, is I feel like Dak Prescott kind of killed his MVP talk with this performance. What do you think?
Everybody's killing their MVP talk. There's maybe like two or three people that I think are valid for MVP right now. Heck, I've even been seeing people saying that Jason Kelsey deserves the MVP award.
I've seen some saying Trent Williams deserves the MVP award.
So we're getting offensive linemen talked about now, which I feel like is the first.
Let me say this right as of right now. I feel like there's only 4 players that are still viable candidates for an MVP award right now.
Okay.
At least that they are still playing well enough that they can be considered in the conversation. We talked about them before because we kind of did a comparison to the two, and that was Christian McCaffrey and Tyreek Hill.
Yep.
They're the two
Those are the top
non-QB.
two in my mind.
Yep, and then the two quarterbacks that I would say are still worthy of it based off their performances are Brock Purdy and Lamar Jackson.
Purdy's been doing good, and he definitely has a case for it because I think he's like leading. I think he's like first in 90% of the categories as a quarterback right now.
He is, but it's funny because he says Christian McCaffrey is the MVP.
Mm-hmm.
So, but anyway, going back to what we were saying here, Dak looks like he's killed his MVP talk with his performance. So what do the Cowboys fix here? Because they're coming down into a very tough schedule this stretch. They've got the Dolphins this week, and I don't think it gets too much easier after that, except for I think they've got the Lions, and then they've got to play the Commanders. So it's not necessarily an easy schedule, and if they want to hang on to the 2 seed, which they have right now, they've got to win those games. What do you think needs to fix here?
Oh, that's such a hard question, like thinking about it, because normally I'm like, the defense is one of the better defenses in the league, but they just got 31 points scored on them, and I think what needs to come down, they need to focus on execution and winning in the trenches.
Do you think that any change needs to come from Dak?
You know, I don't want to immediately throw Dak to the wind yet. I think this could have been a really, really bad game because even some of the best even Patrick Mahomes and Tom Brady and Peyton Manning, Drew Brees, all of them, they've had some games
Yeah.
where it was horrible games for them, but then they bounce back because they're able to refocus and execute a little bit better.
Oh, I agree with that. I 100% agree with that.
Oh,
I think it's more just a thing of how do I say this? There needed to be more offensive output.
yeah.
That needs to be the biggest thing that needed to come from that. And I have my own things to say on the defensive end as well, which we'll get to, especially with this Cowboys and Dolphins matchup coming up here. But I feel like the offensive output here, it starts with Dak, it ends with Dak because the one touchdown that they got, it goes to CeeDee Lamb. We know CeeDee Lamb's perfectly capable of it.
Mm-hmm.
So it felt like nothing could ever get going rhythm wise for Dak. And if he falls into that trouble again, which he seems to often do in the playoffs or in other situations, then the Cowboys, their goose is cooked.
Yep.
So we need to be aware of that.
I
But
will say one other thing before we move on to anything else real quick because we forgot to say this. The Cowboys have clinched a wild card spot along with the Eagles. The 49ers have clinched their division, and the Ravens have clinched a wild card spot as well.
that's very true. And we've had more teams eliminated since then, too, besides the Panthers and the Patriots. If you look, the Arizona Cardinals and the Washington Commanders have been, and the Tennessee Titans have been eliminated. I think that's everyone who has been officially eliminated.
Yep.
Oh, and the New York Jets. The Jets have been eliminated, too, which is interesting because they did officially activate Aaron Rodgers, saying he was eligible to play on Christmas Eve, but he won't play because what is there to play for?
They also said that he's not going to play for the rest of the season. They're just going to activate him so that he can continue practicing and getting reps and
Yeah.
throwing during practice.
Which I think is valid, because as of right now, though, the question, though, that remains, at least for the Jets, and we'll talk about this as we go into their matchup, is now do you have Trevor Siemian become your starting QB in your matchup this week? Because Zach Wilson's out with concussion, and you don't want to play Aaron Rodgers. So that's not good for the Jets. Just saying.
Yeah, I know a lot of teams have signed like more quarterbacks off of practice squads, moved a lot of pieces around. Like I think the Chargers just signed Will Greer to their practice squad. The Patriots grabbed Nathan Rourke, and all sorts of stuff is happening.
Change-ups that need to happen, obviously, in order, if they want to remain in this.
Well, I mean, it's like more than half the teams in the league right now are running the game with a backup at the moment.
Yeah, because it's been an injury-ravaged one, that's for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, well, and that's another thing too, because we were talking about the Cowboys just now, but they're honestly not the NFC East team that I'm concerned about the most right now. That's the Eagles, because in this game against the Seahawks,
Oh, boy.
Seahawks win 20-17. Look, the Seahawks were playing with Drew Lock, their backup QB, and the Seahawks, they snapped a 4-game losing streak because they had some insane plays happen. DK Metcalf with one knee in and one knee out. JSN basically snatching the ball in the end zone with his fingers. Julian Love with a toe-tapping interception. Do you think, first of all, for the Seahawks, this is enough to make a break into the playoffs? Because as of right now, they're just on the outside looking in. And if you look at their standings right now, they're the 8th seed. So they're outside of the playoffs. Do you think they can ride this wave here and manage to make it in?
Oh, I think they can easily sneak into a wild card spot because you look at the teams they're tied with. They're tied with the Rams, who are going to be strong competitors. Then you have the Vikings, who have been on the downhill, and then it's the Buccaneers and Saints, who both don't look great.
And the Buccaneers, as of right now, it's the Buccaneers right now, but one of them will take their division, for one. And then you also have the Packers, who are going downhill as well, too. You got to say that after losing to the Buccaneers.
Yep.
Am I wrong? You lost to an NFC South team like that after it was very clear that the NFC South was going downhill? You tell me.
I mean, especially because everyone was like, "Oh, the Packers are doing great. The Packers were on like a 3-win streak, and now they seem to be taking a step back again."
There were some insane Packers fans just chanting and chanting, being like, "Oh yeah, look how good we are!"
Tom
when they beat the
Grossi.
Chiefs.
I
Yeah, when they
love
beat the
Tom
Chiefs,
Grossi.
and now, yeah, now they're falling apart. So, but here's the thing: the Seahawks. Going back to the Seahawks here, they've got a shot here. The Eagles, there's concern there. The Eagles obviously are going to make the playoffs no matter what, but they look like they're absolute frauds. Nothing looked like it could really get going. Jalen Hurts did not have his Michael Jordan flu game, and he ended up throwing 2 costly interceptions, and it just looked like the whole thing offensively and defensively was a mess. And I already know we already have some of the defensive controversy with that, whether that's Sean Desai or Matt Patricia being the one making the calls. But it looks like the Eagles, the wheels are falling off here at the end.
Yeah, I think the Eagles honestly only have maybe a year or two left of being a super team, and then their entire offensive line might retire, and it's going to be ugly for a
Yeah.
while.
Yep. Okay, that's one thing to be said. I'd say those 2 teams. Let's talk about your 2 teams
All
or
right,
your
so
2 matchups.
I'm going to start with this one because we already talked about it a little bit. We talked about the Tampa Bay Buccaneers and the Green Bay Packers, where the Buccaneers won, and now they're leading their division. The Green Bay Packers took a step back. So, can Baker be the long-term starter after what he's been doing so far? What do you think?
I think he's doing enough to make himself seem like he is the starter long term.
Right.
I think he's getting to the point where he's proven himself enough with Tampa Bay for this season. Is it going to last longer than the season? I don't know. I don't necessarily see Baker getting into this role in Tampa, kind of like how Ryan Tannehill did with the Titans, where all of a sudden he can kind of just take over. I think the Buccaneers may be looking here in the future as far as free agency for one, or maybe even a future in the draft if things start to go downhill. But I think as far as next year, Baker Mayfield has won the starting job.
Yeah, I think Baker's got the starting job for next year. After that, I think they're going to try to draft a quarterback early on if they don't perform well because as we said at the very start of this is a very, very weak draft class for offensive. I think we said it right before we came on. It's like
Yeah.
Caleb Williams talking about not even coming into the draft, Marvin Harrison possibly not coming into the draft, and they're like 2 of the top picks. Then you have Drake May, and then a bunch of linemen and defensive players. So not the most offensive heavy draft this year.
Right. So I mean, it's not the year to draw. So at least the Buccaneers have, an option here where they can have a starter at QB for next season. And I think it's the same situation with the Packers here too, because I think it's clear that Jordan Love is not the problem. Yeah, he needs to make some improvement, but he's not the issue right now. Same as it was with Aaron Rodgers, it's either the defense or the special teams, and right now it's the defense.
Which I mean, even when Rodgers was with the Packers and in Green Bay, it was the defense and special teams for what 5+ years in a row.
Oh yeah, that was the biggest thing that was killing them when they had even the opportunities when they were the 1 or 2 seed is they couldn't make it happen.
Yep. Okay, let's go on to my second game because my second game is one that I was actually very excited for in the sense of this will change a lot of things. In the Houston Texans versus Tennessee Titans / Oilers, I'm saying the Oilers because the Titans wore the Oilers uniform because when the Oilers were in Houston, they moved to Tennessee and then got turned into the Titans. And there was a lot of running jokes that whoever wins this game gets the right to the Oilers jerseys and everything. So that was kind of funny. The Texans won that game in overtime of all things, 19-16. So the Texans have proven that they are still good enough, and they did it without Stroud, without Dell, without Nico Collins, without a lot of their key pieces. So they are now tied for the lead in the AFC South, along with the Colts and the Jaguars. And honestly, the Texans, if they were fully healthy, I think they might be sneakily one of the best teams in the league right now.
Yeah, I think as far as, if they are able to keep up with the health side of things, for sure.
But that brings me to the other side where the Tennessee Titans. Tennessee Titans were close to going into the playoffs last year until they lost the last game of the regular season, and they have struggled this year where Derrick Henry, everyone who has deemed him the king, he had 16 carries, but only for 9 yards, which I believe set a record low for having 10 plus carries and that few of yards. Which I found very interesting. So, with that said, I'm like, okay, Derrick Henry is clearly past his prime now. You have DeAndre Hopkins, who's past his prime. Other receivers who don't really do that much. A young quarterback who is currently injured. If you're the Titans, how do you rebuild this team and be able to start fighting back in what is now becoming a very competitive AFC South?
Well, and here's part of the issue too, is again, correct me if you've already touched on this, but Derrick Henry is he's even openly talked about this could have been his last, this is his last season with the Titans, that he's fully expecting this to go away here.
But see, I don't know if that's meaning him saying I'm going to retire or him saying I don't want to be part of the Titans anymore.
Yeah, I don't know.
But I mean, looking at this team, I'm like, okay, you don't really have receivers outside DeAndre Hopkins who's past his prime. All your other receivers are barely known or very quiet. You have a young rookie quarterback as your future quarterback who's shown that he can do good things, but the rest of the team is just kind of disappointing at this point.
Yeah, and that's obviously something that we're looking for. They're most likely going to be, going into a rebuild.
Yep. I mean, Derrick Henry's not going to be part of that because the Titans' game plan, I think, is going to change a lot because they relied for the past, 10 years so heavily on Derrick Henry and just steamrolling over their opponents with Derrick Henry. Without that
Yep.
piece anymore, they got to change their game plan and their style a little bit.
Yeah. Not a good look for them, that's for sure. After seeming like they were being at the top of the AFC South for a long time, those days are coming to an end.
Yep. So let's move on to our trending up and trending down then.
All right. Trending up, I think you got to put the Seahawks on there.
Yeah, I mean, knocking off the Eagles warrants you everything.
Buccaneers should be going on there as well.
Okay.
But if we have to pick another team,
There's not too many that I actually really liked on for trending up.
I mean, do you put the Raiders on there because they dropped 63 on the Chargers and got Brandon Staley fired?
You know what? I'm gonna say yes for the main reason of everyone's talking about the Raiders right now, especially Chargers fans, and even though they're divisional rivals, Charger fans are very thankful for the Raiders at the moment.
Yeah, that's true.
There's just a mutual understanding. Raiders fans are like, hey, we went through the same thing with Josh McCown earlier in the season. We're happy to return the favor. And the Chargers are like, thank you for doing this and finally getting him fired.
Right? Although it was Josh McDaniels, not Josh McCown. That'd be interesting if it was
That's
Josh
what I meant to
McCown.
say, Josh McDaniels. It's a Josh and a Mech. That's why it got confusing.
I'm not blaming you. I'm not blaming you. I'm just saying, I'm like, Josh McCown coaching the Raiders, that would have been weird.
All right, trending down. I think we gotta have the Eagles on there.
Yes. Oh, absolutely. Hate to say it, Shane, but I think your Jaguars need to go on there too.
Oh yeah, we are way too injured right now to do anything. I don't even see us winning the division this year, which is kind of sad, but injuries will do that.
Yep. And then after being shut out and now losing Zach Wilson a concussion, put the Jets in there as well too.
I mean, I feel like there's a lot of teams we could put on our trending down, but yeah, this is a good list.
Yep. Okay, let's go into our matchups. We've got our Thursday night football tomorrow night. The Rams and the Saints. And Shane, we're both picking the Rams. They just have a more offensive, explosive output. So, matchup monster for this game, I'm going to go with Matthew Stafford. And the reason being is I think this game, especially if he performs well, it is going to solidify his opportunity to be comeback player of the year.
Yeah, that's not a bad one. I think I'm gonna go with the safer pick, which seems to be working very well. I'm gonna say Kyren Williams.
Oh, yeah. I get it.
All right, next up we got the Pittsburgh Steelers and the Cincinnati Bengals.
Another Saturday football game, and we're saying the Bengals win, but it will be kind of close just because of I don't know. I feel like the Steelers are going to try and shape up their direction here. I'm not saying Mason Rudolph is going to carry them, but I'm saying the shape up of their direction might be enough that they're trying to claw in here and save their season, especially in their competitive division.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why I say it'll be close, but the Bengals still win. And the matchup monster for this game, I feel like you have to go with T. Higgins here with Jamar's injury. I just feel like it'll definitely be coming down to him.
See, I'm going with the run game. I'm saying Joe Mixon because you have your best wide receiver go down with an injury. You got a backup quarterback. You're gonna be running the ball a lot more.
Probably true. Very true. Chargers and Bills, we say Bills win it, especially with the mess the Chargers are now going to be in. Bills matchup monster. Do we think James Cook could do it again?
Let's go with James Cook for the repeat.
All right.
Because I would think what Stephon Diggs might even be injured or something, or is that Gabe Davis?
That's Gabe Davis, I'm pretty sure.
Okay, I was like one of the two. I know Gabe Davis like played and just didn't do anything all game.
No, he did not.
Glad I sat him that week.
Yeah, Gabe Davis is technically labeled as healthy, but I really feel like Stephon Diggs is healthy too.
It's possible. It's very possible. I think it was just neither one that was doing that much because of the James Cook explosiveness.
Right, right. That makes sense. Which I'm not complaining about either, because that helped me win one of my fantasy matchups and get into the championship game because my opponent had Josh Allen and Stephon Diggs, but James Cook was running the whole show for him. But the funny thing was, is James Cook was on this guy's bench.
Oh, that's brutal. I will
Yeah.
say for one league, because we're doing a 2 round, so it was like 1 week is 1 round, or one is 2 weeks for that round of playoffs. So the first week of the playoff, I am at the end of that one. I am currently leading by .3. I am cutting it very close, and we're going into this week. I'm like, whoo! I just gotta get enough players going to make a difference. That's all I need.
Yeah. Right.
All right, next
All
up we've
right.
got the Washington Commanders versus the New York Jets. We both have the Commanders winning this one. Who do you have as your matchup monster?
Logan Thomas, the tight end. Heck, I don't.
I was gonna say nobody because this is gonna be a boring game to watch.
I mean, if I had to pick someone, let's go with Terry McLaurin. I feel like, and if it has to go from the Jet side, I feel like they're going to run the ball a lot through Brees Hall.
Yeah, I think this is gonna be a defensive heavy game from the Jets, and then the Commanders are honestly just gonna throw it to everybody.
Yeah. Yep, I think that's accurate.
All right, Lions versus Vikings. We both are saying the Lions are gonna win it. Who do you have as your matchup monster?
With Amon-Ra St. Brown.
Oh, going with St. Brown. I like it. You know, it's very hard to pick between David Montgomery and Jahmyr Gibbs.
Yeah, I get it.
I think I'm going to go with Gibbs on this one. But I wouldn't be surprised if David Montgomery is the lead back going in.
Yeah, I would definitely see that too. But I'd be really great if it was Gibbs.
Yeah.
Okay. Browns and Texans. We're saying the Browns win it, but it'll be a little on the close side because I feel like a lot of that is still controlled by how well the Browns defense plays.
And how
So
healthy
with
the
that being
Texans are.
said, yeah, so with that being said, Myles Garrett, matchup monster.
Yeah, it's hard to beat one of the best pass rushers in the game.
Especially if he's getting calls going his way, which lately he hasn't been, and that's something he's complained about.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
gotten
but
even fined for.
other teams get like all the calls going their way. Oh boy. Oh yeah, did you see the news where not the news, but it was like Jason Kelsey got flagged for a false start for slightly moving the ball at the when the Reds placed it
Yep.
down, which I'm like, doesn't every center do that?
Yeah, I thought there was a little head scratching.
A lot of people are like,
Let's just say
every
there were a lot
center
of
in history has done that.
let's just say there were a lot of mistakes that were called for the Eagles. Seahawks won, and I think the Seahawks definitely beat the Eagles,
Oh
but
yeah,
at the same time, the Eagles beat themselves.
yeah, but I mean, it's been talked about. I feel like a lot more this year. Is like officiating has been very questionable, where it's not even like, oh, they missed calls, or oh, this is a bad no call. It's more of a, there's a lot of stuff being called now that has never been called in history before.
Uh-huh.
All right,
Yeah.
let's go Green Bay Packers versus the Carolina Panthers.
Oh, I mean,
It's the
look, you're only
Panthers.
going to hang 9 points and you somehow still get a win. Look, it's going to be the Packers.
Who's your matchup monster?
Um, well, it's AJ Dillon. I don't freaking know.
I am going to say Jordan Love is going to have one of his best games this week.
I think that's possible to do it when it's against the Panthers.
Exactly.
Okay. Seahawks and Titans. We're saying the Seahawks win it. Matchup monster here. I'd like to see JSN have another big game. I'm going to go with him.
Yeah, that was pretty fun to watch, I'm not going to lie.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll go with you on the JSN call. Actually, I'm gonna go with Kenneth Walker. He seemed to be doing really well this past week against the Eagles.
Yep. Yep. I can agree with that. Okay. Colts and Falcons. We say the Colts are going to win it. Even without Michael Pittman, although he could potentially be out of concussion protocol before then. But the Colts matchup monster here, I gotta go with Gardner Minshew. If he can play well and be able to do what he does, it'll be an easy game against the Falcons.
Honestly, I think Minshew is one of the best backup quarterbacks to have on your team, and I think that's why the Colts are doing so well, is because they have a very competent backup quarterback.
Yeah, a lot of the time he makes very smart plays, so I completely understand that.
I was like, him and Jake Browning, I think, are like the two best backups right now.
I would absolutely agree with that.
So yeah, I gotta go
Yeah.
with Gardner Minshew because I don't feel confident in the Colts run game right now.
Right. Well, Zach Moss's injury, Jonathan Taylor's injury, yeah, it's not ideal.
I mean, let's see. Who the heck? Trey Sermon and Tyler Goodson.
Nobody's
I have
practically.
never heard those people in my life. Oh boy. Okay, next up we got the Jacksonville Jaguars versus the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And this one we do disagree with. You're saying the Jaguars are going to get it. I'm saying the Buccaneers will.
And here's the thing. I know I really probably should change my answer and say that it is the Buccaneers because I was not aware of Trevor Lawrence's injury.
Yep,
I'll
he's.
probably say it is.
Go ahead.
I would say it's the Buccaneers.
Yeah. Because I will say this. Trevor Lawrence is in concussion right now and most likely not going to play. And CJ Beathard, the backup quarterback, has a shoulder injury that he is still trying to deal with. So if he goes
Oh,
down,
great.
we're scratching our head all of a sudden.
Yeah,
I
that's
think we
true.
signed EJ Perry to the practice squad in case of something happening.
All right.
But yeah, I think Buccaneers are just the healthier team. I think they're going to win it. Matchup monster. Hate to say, I think Mike Evans is going to do it.
Mike Evans or Rashad White.
All right. Next matchup. This
Okay.
one we disagree on again.
Oh, it's the Cowboys and the Dolphins, and you say the Cowboys win. I want to hear your reasoning behind that.
I honestly, this one, I think the defense is going to be like, man, we just got beat last week. We need to step up, and they are going to focus hard. And honestly, it's going to be the high octane Dolphins offense versus the normally very gritty, very tough Cowboys defense.
Here's where my issue with
Yep.
that is. I think that there was some knowledge gained from this game against the Bills.
Mm-hmm.
The the Cowboys defense is very good at stopping the pass.
Mm-hmm.
They have not been great against stopping the run, per se.
Yeah, Mostert's done
And
well. A-Chain has done well.
so what I'm saying is the Cowboys' run defense is not great, and the Dolphins have the number 2 running attack in the league.
It'll be
So
interesting.
that's my reasoning for why I believe that the Dolphins will be able to win this game. Is they are going to rely more on their running backs than they will on Tua, especially if we continue at this point with Tyreek's injury. So
And that's
that's
why
my pick.
Yeah, that's what I'm going off of. Is that if Tyreek is out this game, I feel like the Cowboys are going to be able to focus up a little bit more on the run defense rather than the pass defense.
And that is perfectly possible.
It's definitely. I think this is going to be one of the better games to watch this week.
It will probably be one of the big ones for sure.
All right, so who is your matchup monster?
It will be Raheem Mostert.
All right, I am going to say it's going to be Dak, and I think he's going to have his bounce back game after last week.
Okay. Very cool. Very cool. Okay. And next up, we have the Cardinals and the Bears. And we disagree on this one, too. You say the Bears win it. I say the Cardinals win it.
I want to hear your reasoning for the Cardinals, honestly.
I can honestly still see it going either way because I do feel like the Bears defense could actually do a pretty good job messing up the Cardinals' rhythm. But I also feel like between Emile Demercado and the impressive running game that they were able to do even against the 49ers defense in this past game, and you got Kyler Murray back, I think it might be enough that it would eventually wear down the Bears defense. My only concern is I'm not entirely sure the Cardinals defense is going to be able to do much on the other end as well. That being said, it could turn into another close game like for the Bears last week, but I got the Cardinals coming out on top.
Okay. Oddly enough, I don't know if you know this. Do you know who the number one receiving tight end in the league right now is?
Receiving tight end, it's Cole Kmet, isn't it?
No.
Who is
It
it?
it is Trey McBride, the
For
Cardinals
the
tight end.
Cardinals. Really? I thought you were going this direction because of Cole Kmet, and I was like, is he really? But yeah,
No,
okay.
Trey McBride. Which I was like, I saw that and I was like, who the heck is Trey McBride? So I like pulled up all my fantasy leagues and I'm just like, how many is he available in? I'm like, wow, he's available in almost every single league right now.
Oh, how about that?
Yeah, so if you're looking for an upgraded tight end, he might be one to grab for everybody.
Yeah, right?
I mean, this past week he had 10 receptions for 102 yards against the 49ers defense.
My goodness.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's nothing to sneeze at. Anyways, your matchup monster.
Okay, well, with that being said, though, and I'd just like to point this out, though, as I go into who my matchup monster will be, you talk about, how Trey McBride could be your matchup monster in this regard, being the big receiving tight end.
Mm-hmm.
But do you know what team defensively leads the league in interceptions?
Is it the? There's no way it's the Bears.
It is the Bears.
Dang, I was like, I know the Jaguars were like top 5 not too long ago.
So what I'm saying is my matchup monster for this pick will be the defense in being able to cause that havoc, essentially.
Okay.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
I'm gonna go with just the Bears defense in general, making it difficult there as far as getting some interceptions there, stopping that sort of thing.
Yeah. I'll say keep an eye on Trey McBride.
Okay.
Wait, is it the Bears? I think the Bears just got leapfrogged this past week.
Oh, did they? Okay.
Yep.
Well, but they're up there.
They are number 2. They are behind by 1 behind the 49ers.
Oh, okay. Well, hard to top the 49ers at this point.
Yeah, and then it's the Bengals and the Colts. They're tied for 3rd at 15, and then the Browns and the Jaguars and Saints are tied for 5th place at 14 each.
Okay.
But yes, the Bears and the 49ers have like 3 to 4 interceptions separating you guys from everybody else.
So, I mean that tells you something though.
That's one of the better interception teams.
Yes.
All right,
Okay.
next up, we got the New England Patriots versus Denver Broncos. We both agree this one because the Patriots are kind of tanking and the Broncos are starting to do fairly well. So we're both saying the Broncos are going to win it. Who is your matchup monster?
Devontae Murray.
I think I'll go with you just because I feel like the passing game for the Broncos it's not the best, but it just works.
Yeah. Sure.
All right,
All right.
next
How
up.
about this one? Raiders and Chiefs, and we disagree. You say the Raiders will win this, and I say the Chiefs will just barely get the win out. And for the Chiefs to barely get the win out, they've got to have Pacheco playing. So my matchup monster is Isaiah Pacheco.
Yeah, I mean, this is an interesting one because I feel like the Chiefs struggle a little bit with the Raiders for whatever reason, and I don't think the Raiders have been great, but neither have the Chiefs. I don't think I've said his name, but I think you have. I'm gonna say Devonte Adams.
Let's see if you want to go with someone. Truth be told, as far as what the Chiefs are able to do, and their defense is not exactly great at holding back run. So if Josh Jacobs is healthy, I would throw him in there too.
Yeah, he's a healthy scratch right now, so
Yeah,
that'll be
I
one
mean
to watch for.
he's questionable, but he's expected to play.
Yeah.
We'll see. Yeah. Hey, we got the Giants and the Eagles. Eagles will get a little bit of a breath here. There won't be a 4-game losing streak. It'll just be 3. They'll snap it.
If it
Eagles
turns
get the
into
win
a
here.
4-game losing streak, though,
Oh
whoo!
my gosh! Then just call in the dogs and pull it out the fire.
Yep. Matchup
Hey,
monster, though.
Devontae Smith.
Oh, gonna go with Smith. I'm gonna say Swift because I feel like he hasn't done too much lately.
Yeah. Okay. All right, and then the last one, which I think could be our potential Super Bowl matchup, or at least it could be the game of the year even.
I
It's going
think
to be fun.
everyone is saying this is gonna be the possible Super Bowl matchup.
Ravens and 49ers, whether you believe in the whole controversy of the script or not, controversy or
With
the
the logo
what's the word
and the
I'm looking
colors of
for?
everything.
Yeah, conspiracy. So yeah, Ravens and 49ers. You say the Ravens win, I say the 49ers win. Look, the Ravens struggled a little head to head there with the Jaguars, who have been injury ravaged and defense hasn't played well. And while Lamar Jackson can be really good, I don't see them really being able to hold off a win. Maybe some difficulty, but not a win from the 49ers.
Yeah, this is one that I think is going to come down to a coin flip, essentially. Not literally, but I think if the Ravens are able to get their offense going and clean up a lot of their mistakes that they were having last week, I think that they'll put up a fight against the 49ers. Because, I mean, the Cardinals, of all teams, were able to drop 29 points on the 49ers, given the 49ers did score 45, but for having one of the better defenses to score 29 on one of the best teams right now it's a little confusing at the moment.
It's not really confusing. What it is there were a lot of injuries for the defensive side, especially up front. If they're healthy, which it seems like they will be, I think that makes things very difficult for the Ravens. Whereas on the other end, the Ravens have a great defense. But I'm concerned is where a lot of times they're able to play well based off the fact that they know where the ball is going to go. Well, where is the ball going to go when you have Purdy able to throw to Kittle or Ayuk or Samuel, and then you've got either McCaffrey or Juszczyk in the back?
Yeah, it's just a stacked roster, honestly.
It really is. And then on top of that, you've got that defensive front. As long as everyone else is healthy, then it makes it very difficult because you've got that defensive front where all the players are healthy, whether that's, Hargrave or, Armstead, those sort of players who were not healthy. They come back in here, they are healthy. Well, then you got to hold them back somehow. Otherwise, it's an automatic sack. But then how do you double team Chase Young and Nick Bosa?
Yep. And I think what's going to come into a big factor in this game is Lamar Jackson's speed.
Yes, I would very much agree with that. That's another thing too is the running back situation once again is looking bad for the Ravens. So it once again comes down to Lamar Jackson and his own ability putting the team on his back because also Odell Beckham Jr. is questionable as well.
Yep, it's going to rely on Zay Flowers a little bit more.
Yep, maybe even Nelson Aguilar. Oh jeez.
Gosh.
Anyway, my matchup monster for this game, who else but Christian McCaffrey?
CMC, what a lot of people are saying should be the MVP this year. I'm going to say the other backup MVP. I'm going to say Lamar Jackson because I think it's going to come down to him.
Yep, I could definitely see that, especially if you picking them to be the ones who win.
Yep.
Okay. All right, and then with that, we jump into our For the Fun, which is our annual coaching carousel. We need to talk about it, obviously, because you had Brandon Staley fired recently, but there's a lot of other coaches who could still be on the chopping block here. I know we always talk about the hot seat here, but now it's time to talk about teams where could there be another candidate, or what happens to this one coach who's technically still got a job right now, but will they be gone? So we're going to analyze which teams may be looking for a new head coach in the offseason, who are viable candidates. And obviously, not all teams listed are guaranteed to be looking for a new head coach, but they should be considered given their performance this season. So there's actually a lot of them on here, believe it or not. So let's kick it off here real quick with the New England Patriots. There's been talk about Bill Belichick walking, either retiring, going to another team, or getting fired. What do you think is going to happen there, Shane?
I think they might fire him. If they don't fire him, he's definitely going to walk and he's going to go into a team that desperately needs a coach, and they're on this list, so I'm going to save that for later.
Okay. Yep, I think I know the direction you're going from there. I think that if he is leaving, which I really do feel like he is leaving in some way, it's because he's going to walk. I really do. I don't think the Patriots would ever fire him. I think there's too much going on there, especially with the relationship with Robert Kraft. Um, I think it's more of a thing if he chooses to willingly walk away. It is a mutual decision to part ways.
Yeah, and I think that's what's going to come down to is that it's going to be like a light firing where they're like, hey, we want to move on from you, but we don't want to outright fire you because of everything that you've done for this organization. So we want to let you know and let you decide if you want to walk, retire, or stay here.
Right. Now, who becomes the head coach in his place?
Whew, man, I have no
So,
idea.
so it's funny. There's names you could always throw around, people coming from college or something like that, or even it'd be even crazy if you could say Bill O'Brien gets that opportunity. But I
Goodness, not
think whoever
again.
does it, right, whoever does get this job with Belichick going, they know that they need to focus on it being an offensive-minded coach because the Patriots are going to be grabbing a new quarterback.
Yep.
Okay. How about the Jets? Do you think Salah is going to be out at the end of this year, or do you think he gets one more year and see how he does with Aaron Rodgers?
I think he gets one more year because he never got to play with his Aaron Rodgers experiment.
I would agree, but if things don't go well with Aaron Rodgers next year, if they still get off to a rough start and they have a losing record, he will get fired midseason.
Oh yeah.
Okay. Buffalo Bills failing to make the playoffs or losing in the first round might mean the end for Sean McDermott. You think it could happen?
I think it can, but at this point, it's kind of like a who would you replace McDermott with? Because McDermott has consistently gotten them to the playoffs, and it's not even necessarily like a bad coaching perspective all the time on why they don't go further in the playoffs. It's just one or two plays or a coin flip or
Uh huh.
something always
Right.
comes up where it's just they get unlucky, and that's what it comes down to.
I can agree with that, and it's more of a thing of they may change their approach as far as some of their staff, and I think more than anything, making sure that Stephon Diggs and Josh Allen both stay happy.
Yeah, which apparently Stephon Diggs is not the happiest right now.
Well, you hear that every season, so
Yeah.
I don't know. How about the Steelers? You think this is it for Mike Tomlin?
I think if they decide to get rid of Mike Tomlin, if I were Mike Tomlin, I would rather retire because he has consistently dragged this team to a plus 500 record.
Right. And
It,
this might be the first season that they don't.
and if they don't do it and they fire him over that, he's like, "What do you want me to do? We have a quarterback who's injured. We have all these pieces that are injured or not playing well. We were in the middle of a rebuild because we lost our franchise quarterback for years. What do you want me to do?"
But I also feel like the Steelers' way is dead, and it's probably time for Mike Tomlin to walk out, whether he does get fired or decide to walk out. Because look, things fell apart, the wheels specifically, with Ben Roethlisberger down the way, and especially with Antonio Brown and Le'Veon Bell. But things haven't gotten better. Look at Najee Harris. Look at Chase Claypool. Look at Deontay Johnson. Look at George Pickens and some of the things that they've been talked about with them. It looks like things are falling apart there, and I think Mike Tomlin is basically saying, you know what, I'm done.
I mean,
That's how I see it.
I think it's very hard because I think his might be not necessarily like the Steelers' way, but just the coaching style has completely changed. Where that style isn't the greatest anymore. Where I think it was even like Tom Coughlin had like this very tough exterior and was very rough and rude to his players. That doesn't necessarily work anymore, and a lot of these players get very turned off by that style of coaching. And Mike Tomlin might be a little too aggressive for most teams now.
Maybe. I don't know. I
It's hard to
feel
say.
like, yeah, I feel like there's a lot more to it. Could have been
It
better, could have been
Yeah.
worse.
I will say if this is his last season, I think he should walk out and retire, especially if they end 500. Retire, walk off into the sunset of basically having a never below 500 record as a head coach and go down as one of the best.
Yep, I think so. All right, well, and let's see. Next up we've got the Los Angeles Chargers. Who fixes the disaster left behind by Brandon Staley and Tom Telesco?
The biggest one that I've been seeing, I said it earlier, Bill Belichick has been heavily associated with the Chargers, and one other name has been talked about, and that's man, I forget which Harbaugh is it. Is it Jim or John in Michigan right now?
Jim, Johns with the Ravens.
Okay, I always forget. There's been a lot of talk about Jim Harbaugh potentially going to the Chargers and fixing everything.
Yeah, I've heard that name thrown around as well. I think they're definitely two viable candidates that could go there. Raiders. Do they keep Antonio Pierce or do they check the market for someone else? Because here's the thing: they didn't keep Rich Bisaccia and then they hired Josh McDaniels, and we saw how that turned out.
I mean, honestly, from everything I've heard about the Raiders team itself, the players love having Antonio Pierce, where most of them want to run through a wall for him, and despite all the injuries and despite going through a massive rebuild, not knowing your quarterback or all this other stuff, he's kept the Raiders somewhat competitive and doing decently since he took over.
I would agree, and I think it might not be a bad idea to keep him on this time and not try and look for some flashy name like they have in the past.
Yeah. All right, let's move on to the Tennessee Titans, where a rebuild is definitely coming, and the question we have is, will Mike Vrabel be there for the rebuild?
I think they're going to put him in for at least 1 year.
You think he's got another year in him?
I think so. If he is leaving, it's not going to be like because he's fired.
It's going
I
to be
really don't
because
think
he
they're going to do
walks,
that.
essentially.
Yes, essentially.
All right, next up we got the Washington Commanders, which a lot of people have been talking about this one. Is it time for Ron Rivera to go? Because at this point, who can develop Sam Howell? Because we saw flashes of Sam Howell where he was one of the better quarterbacks in the league this year, but it's kind of fallen off a little bit. And I think with the right person in charge, he may be able to get back on that horse again.
Which is why there's a little bit of belief that Eric Bieniemy could potentially just step into the head coaching role after.
And I mean, I think Bieniemy deserves it because we talked about him becoming a head coach after being the offensive coordinator with the Chiefs, and then he goes to a different team to do the exact same thing. He needs his chance to become a head coach because he studied under Andy Reid, one of the better head coaches and one of the better mindsets. And honestly, I think he deserves the shot.
Yeah, no, I would definitely agree. Okay. Up next, we've got the New York Giants. Now, it would be a mistake to fire Brian Dable. Look, it's one bad season, and we know things aren't always great with the Jets. But do you think it could happen? I think
Uh,
it could, but I don't. I think it could, but I don't think it will.
I was like, could is a completely different. Like, yes, it could happen. Is it likely to happen? No.
Yeah, I think
Especially
so.
because you just extended your quarterback to like a massive contract and then he gets injured very early on in the season.
Yes, very true. It's just always a big mess there, especially with the whole Daniel Jones situation.
Yeah, still don't agree with the re-signing of Daniel Jones to that big of a contract.
Oh yeah, I think most Giants fans don't.
Yep. Okay. Green Bay Packers. Is Matt LaFleur making the right decisions to keep his job, or should Joe Barry be the only firing this season?
I think Joe Barry just needs to be the firing. I think there's
Yeah.
definitely another chance there for Matt. I prefer Matt LaFleur. Hello, wrong LaFleur, and that will make the difference. There, it's just they just got to figure out something that's gonna stand long
Yeah, because
term.
I mean,
Or
yes, they did get Jordan Love, and he's finally actually starting and playing. But Jordan Love was what, drafted 3, 4 years ago,
mm-hmm.
and he is just now starting to play. And it wasn't even like we grabbed him in like round 3 or 4. They grabbed him in their first round and then sat him for 3 to 4 years.
Exactly.
Yeah, if I was an owner, I would not want that GM around for much longer.
That's fair. All right. Chicago Bears. Can the stellar defensive performance save Matt Eberflus, or will he go with the likely termination of Luke Getsy? I think Getsy's gone. They say they're likely planning on moving on from him and getting someone who's a better OC. But is Eberflus stay?
I mean, we've talked about it a little bit before where Justin Fields definitely needs more offensive talent around him and needs a better coordinator, I think. Eberflus, I
Mm-hmm.
think, is doing a good job with your guys' defense, but I don't think the struggles of the offense with not having many weapons to go to is solely
Mm-hmm.
on him.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Okay. As we move through here, we got just a few more. We've got the Cardinals. Is Jonathan Gannon a filler coach, or could he stay on longer? I don't think he's going to go just yet, but I
He's got
do
another
believe he's
year
a
or
filler.
two.
I do believe he's a filler coach, though.
Yeah.
Now, are
Waiting
the
until
Saints
the
ready?
right coach enters the market.
Yes. Yes. Now, next up, we got the Saints. Are they ready to move away from Dennis Allen, and who can return the Saints to contention? I think they are going to go with someone else here
Yeah,
in
I
this
can see
offseason.
it. Saints have been struggling a lot this offseason or this season.
Problem is, I just don't know who they'd go with just yet. You know what I mean? There's no one that really sticks out, unless, of course, it is someone like a Jim Harbaugh or a Bill Belichick.
Yeah, it's hard to say. I don't think either of those coaches will go there. I mean, I don't even think Eric Bieniemy will go there.
Yeah.
I think the Saints are a lot of decisions away from getting an actual head coach in the future. So, I mean, it could be that Dennis Allen is in that kind of temporary spot that or filler coach spot that Jonathan Gannon is in as well.
Yeah, I think you're right. Could just be there for the time being.
Because I mean, you're entering a rebuild very soon. It's on the horizon. You need a franchise quarterback because Derek Carr isn't it. You have Jameis Winston isn't it. You need to find someone. You need to find someone fast before you waste Chris Olave's prime.
Yeah. Okay.
Carolina
Uh,
Panthers.
who do they take to develop Bryce Young after this? Y'all.
I mean, part of me, and this is just wild speculation. I don't think it would happen. Imagine if Bill Belichick walks into the Panthers building.
Yeah, it's too much of a mess there for that to happen.
Yeah,
But it would
but
it would certainly.
he would be someone that could develop Bryce Young.
Yeah, that is true.
But yeah, the Panthers are such a dumpster fire right now that it's gonna be hard finding a very good head coach to take over this team unless they see a lot of promise in Bryce Young and are like, I want this quarterback and I want to be heavily involved in the draft pick process.
Yeah, which they may not be wanting to relinquish that to him just yet.
Yeah.
Okay. And then the Atlanta Falcons. Look, Arthur Smith, not the answer, and that's
No.
becoming more and more important, especially after this loss. So, who steps in?
Well, once again, I think we gotta look and see who's available in the market. I don't even know if we have an answer this offseason because this offseason I feel like there's not many good
I
candidates
can,
to take over.
right. I can look at seeing the Falcons finding a way to woo Ben Johnson, the offensive coordinator for the Lions, down there.
Ooh, that'd be an interesting one. But I mean, I feel like the Falcons are in the same position as a lot of other teams with what do you have? You got a young, good running back. You got a fairly young tight end, but you don't have an answer at quarterback right now.
Yes, and that they need to figure out either in free agency or with some sort of trade in order to get them, you
Yep.
know, in a decent spot for the draft. Although, let's be honest, they're probably in a better shot to get the quarterbacks coming in later, whether that's a Bo Nix or a Michael Penix or a Jaden Daniels, than someone like Drake May or Caleb Williams.
Yeah, Drake May or Caleb Williams probably gonna go to the Patriots. I forget. Let me see what the current draft order is. Give me a minute, but go ahead.
I'll just finish off here with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, which there's question as far as to whether Todd Bowles is really the answer in Tampa. They're going to keep him here for at least one more year, especially if they manage to win the division. But I think he could go within the next year, especially if the Buccaneers start to go downhill a little bit.
Yeah.
And so with that, that is the conclusion as far as all of our teams, as far as what coaches could stay or could go. And now it just remains to be seen as far as what is actually going to shape out. Because once we hit the end of the regular season, we will start to see some of these coaches drop off.
And I will say, here is the current draft order. So the number 1 overall pick is the Bears because Panthers traded their first overall pick this year to the Bears. Then you have
Right.
the Patriots, who will most likely go for a quarterback. I don't see them grabbing Harrison even if he is there.
Mm-hmm.
Then you got the Cardinals, which I think they'll stick with Kyler Murray for another year or two. Then you got the Commanders, who... do you think the Commanders would grab a quarterback after seeing what Sam Howell has been doing for the team?
Yeah.
It's hard to see. And then you got the Bears again. Those are the top 5.
Yeah, that gives them an opportunity.
And the next 3 is literally the Giants, who just re-signed Daniel Jones, the Jets, who just got Aaron Rodgers, and the Chargers, who just re-signed Justin Herbert. Honestly, I think the Falcons are in a good spot because number 9 is the Titans, and they got Will Levis last year, who is in his rookie year, and then it falls to the Falcons to grab a quarterback. So honestly, I think the Falcons could get the second best quarterback in the draft very easily.
I guess we'll see. It's not impossible once you explain it that way, that's for sure.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of these teams have good quarterbacks or young quarterbacks that's worth keeping around for a while. But with that said, that will take us to the end of this week's episode.
Yep, and look, there's going to be some good matchups here to definitely keep an eye upon, whether you're spending time with family or in some other situation here. But I think the biggest one is the Ravens and the 49ers.
Yep, that's the one I think everyone's going to be the most excited about.
That's one I'm looking forward to.
Yep. But with that, we will see you all next time.
Have a good night.